Hello and welcome to Breakthroughs with Bree, where we are discussing all the topics that create extraordinary breakthroughs in our personal and spiritual development journeys. I'm Bree, otherwise known as Healing with Bree, and I'm a spiritual coach and Akashic Records channelers who helps sensitives and intuitives connect more deeply with their hearts, intuition, and souls, and teaches people how to process and alchemize the fears and beliefs that hold them back from living in their authenticity and purpose. You're in the right place if you like to hear about spirituality, psychology, healing, consciousness, manifestation, developing your spiritual and intuitive gifts, and living from your heart and soul instead of from your fears and ego. I hope you enjoy this episode. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Breakthroughs with Bree. Today, we have one of my favorite times of the month. And this is when I do my monthly energy forecast, and we're doing it today for December 2024. It was interesting because I didn't do the forecast for October, November because we were in a break between seasons, even though technically I did do a November forecast energy for my monthly community call, which, by the way, if you haven't joined yet, you definitely should. You get to ask any question you want to the Akashic Record Keepers, get their guidance, get a little coaching on how to implement it for only $11. And you get the recording. It's wonderful. But anyway, I did a little tap into the monthly energy there, but I haven't done it for the podcast and for you guys in a hot minute. And I was at a coffee shop with some friends before recording this, and I just was so excited. I was like, I can't wait to tune in. I can't wait to come and tap into the energies of the month again. I know you guys love these episodes, and it being a new season, I'm just going to let it flow with however the guides want to pull this through. I have my tarot cards ready, so we're definitely going to use tarot. And I've been so into using my affirmators deck. If you're on video, I'm showing it. It's like a purple box, and the cards are like very colorful and lots of animals, and it's just like a really fun deck. And I think I'm going to use the little booklet, which I don't usually do. I usually just go off my own knowledge of tarot, but they have really fun affirmations. And I think that I'm going to pull a card for like an affirmation of the month based on like this deck, which is like very cheeky and fun. So it's going to be a good time. If you've never joined for an energy forecast before, I'm connected to the Akashic Records, which is the primary place where I channel from, the book of life, the record of everything. And I'm connected to the Akashic Record Keepers so that they can give us their insights into this month and their suggestions for how to navigate it. And then I also use tarot to pull through these messages. In the previous months, I've referred to the numerology. I don't know if I'm feeling called to do that this month. And I've mentioned a little bit about the astrology, which I might at the end, just like about like the sun and the moon season. But there's so many wonderful astrologers who specialize in transit astrology, which is like what's happening in the current world. And I'm not feeling as pulled to spend too much time on that. But if you want a really great one, Aliza Kelly just started a Horoscope Weekly where there's a weekly podcast, not only for the weekly transit, but she also breaks it down by each zodiac sign. So I really highly recommend Aliza. We are Aliza Kelly stans here. I've met her before and she's lovely. So if you're looking for more of that, you can find that there. But this will be more of the vibes, of the energy currents, of big topics and themes that happen throughout the month that we can just be aware of and we can keep of top of mind so that it can feel supportive and help us move through the month with more ease and get the most out of it that we can. And just because we're all kind of curious about this kind of stuff, like what's the vibe, you know? Okay, so let's dive into the energy, everyone. So the record keepers want to start with a little bit of what went on in November. My November community call participants got to hear a little bit about this, but November had a little bit of a funky energy, and it kind of had like a just surrender and let things get shifted around. That it wasn't really a time where we were able to make things make sense just yet. It was like what things were happening, and sometimes our ego mind's tendency is like immediately find the answers, immediately find the solution, immediately put things in their buckets in their box and make the connections and get the aha so you can move on from it. And November just wasn't that kind of energy, according to what they were showing me. It was one of those things where a lot of stuff was getting kicked up and we were feeling really sensitive and we were feeling like the tide's changing. But it felt like one of those times where we just have to let like the tide of the ocean carry and wash away what it needs to. And if we force trying to create clarity in a moment where clarity's not arising, like we would just make it more frustrating for ourselves. It's almost like fighting against a wave. Like sometimes you just gotta relax, like literally relax your body, relax your mind, let it carry, and then when the dust settles, be able to look through things clearly. And it felt like the energy of November was like, don't judge things in a way that makes you freak out about them. So like when things feel a little wonky, like all of a sudden you're like, am I doing something wrong? Is everything going to shit? Is everything bad? Right? And that would be an example of judging it as bad. Like, we don't need to do that. Things are happening, things are moving, things are a little crazy. Trying to stay in that neutral, observing energy, not making it mean something about us, not making it mean something about how things will absolutely turn out in the future, just like staying in the flow and allowing ourselves to just kind of experience it, allowing ourselves to just let energy move and flow and feel and not need to make it known and to have answers like right away, like staying in that feeling unknown portal for a minute, because it felt like there was going to come a time for answers to be revealed. For me, it felt like it was in the start of the year. A lot of the energy that got kicked up this November would probably feel like, okay, there's a resolution on it that happens January, February next year. So just so you guys know, there was a little bit of that for November, and it felt like they at least wanted to mention that as we talk about December. All right, now let's talk about December. I'm going to do a spread, and here's the questions that we're asking. We're doing a 3-card spread to represent like the energy that we're going to move through the duration of December. The first card is going to be what we start with in December. The second card is going to be some energy that we move through. And the third card is the energy that we move to, like towards the end of the month. So it's kind of like the flow of energy that we're going to move through December. So the first card we have is the Queen of Swords. And if you're watching on video, which you can on YouTube or on Spotify, I'm showing them to the camera. The second card that we have is the Knight of Pentacles. The third card that we have is the Four of Cups. Let's talk about what this all means. So for the Queen of Swords, this is the energy that we're starting with. And she is very straight to the point. She's like, let's cut through all the BS and even like some of like the emotional projection that we do into situations. The sword suit is the sword of the mind, and it can represent very logical, clear-headed, objective planning. And the Queen of Swords represents like a maturity and like a really strong embodiment of that. So it feels like we're starting off the month of December like really no bullshit. Like we're cutting straight to what is the plan? What's really going on? What do we really want? What is it that we need to do? Okay. And this also feels kind of synchronistic that we're going to be in Sagittarius season, because Sagittarius is really blunt. They can be very open-minded and optimistic, which isn't necessarily the energy of the Queen of Swords. The Queen of Swords isn't necessarily optimistic, but they're very blunt. They're very to the point. So I feel like we're going to feel a surge of energy that allows us to be a little bit more honest with ourselves and maybe able to be a little bit more clear-headed in terms of our plan and our direction and what it is that we really need to be doing this month. As we move from that Queen of Swords energy, we're going to have the Knight of Pentacles, which feels very fitting, okay? The Pentacles is the suit of our material, practical life. So our job, our money, our health, our home, right? The material, physical things. And the Knight of Pentacles is all about rolling up your sleeves and getting to work. Like literally like getting to work, okay? So it's completing your action items and your to-do list and really getting into the rhythm of your routine and really starting to get some repetition in for these things that you want for yourself, right? It's a hard worker, maybe also a little bit no nonsense, just really focused. So I feel like we're taking like physical action, like we're doing a lot, probably in relation to the things that we uncovered in that Queen of Swords energy. So there's a little bit of like a, let's get down to business. Let's really make some progress on whatever those are this month with this Nine of Pentacles energy. And then we move into the Four of Cups. Here's the interesting thing that I'm feeling about the Four of Cups is it feels like there's a little bit of like a collective psyche thing that we're working through with this, and I'll explain this a little bit more. The Four of Cups can represent when we're getting a little bit pessimistic or we're getting sucked into scarcity thinking, okay? And if you've not heard this concept of scarcity thinking before, it's kind of like there's not enough of anything, or it's this belief that there's limited amounts, which creates these ideas of being afraid that there won't be enough for you, or there's too much for somebody else, or there's competition. And it can really lead to pessimistic thinking, because of course it would be a bummer if the things that we really want, it feels like there's only enough for a few and we don't really have a chance at getting it, and that kind of energy. This is in the suit of the cups, which has to do with emotions as well as our intuition and our spiritual gifts and love and relationships. And I feel like this is some emotional byproduct of past experiences, of old beliefs that we're still dealing with in our body and that are coming up when we are getting disappointed or when things don't immediately go the way that we want. I feel like there's this old energy of being kind of pessimistic, or again, just resorting to this energy of being like, oh, well, it just won't happen for me, or it'd be really hard if it happened for me. It's going to take so long. And none of those beliefs are true, but they almost kind of act like as protective mechanisms, like to protect us from being disappointed, or they kind of cover up internal beliefs that we might not be capable or that we're not really worthy of what we want. Because when we hold those deep-rooted beliefs that we might not be capable or able or worthy of the things that we dream of course we start to engage a lot of these fear and ego patterns when we're on our way to getting it, right? And again, the beginning of the month with this Queen of Swords and then this Knight of Pentacles energy is like we're letting ourselves see what's really going on, what we really need to do, maybe be more clear on our goals and our motivations. And this Knight of Pentacles is us finally letting ourselves take action and get there. And that can be a hard thing. That can bring up a lot of triggers about, again, our beliefs around if we feel like we can deserve and accept what we want, which feels like it's represented by this Four of Cups. So if you find yourself accessing that energy, one, remember that those beliefs are not necessarily true, but we have to address them and we have to rewrite those stories in our own mind if we don't want our body and our energy to keep getting sucked into that pattern. And bringing it back around to what I said at the beginning, it feels like there's like a collective like energy. There's something in like the collective psyche that's really tied to this. So yes, it's probably a belief that you have absorbed yourself if it's something that you're feeling, but this is also something like as a whole community, as a whole society, that it feels like we're on a subconscious level kind of trying to evolve out of, like our higher selves, all of our higher selves connected in the magical web that we are. Like we're all trying to evolve past. And in order for us to evolve past anything, we have to bump up against it. We have to feel it. It might feel like there's a little bit of friction. It might feel like we struggle with it a little bit, but that's ultimately where we are able to untangle it and find the truth. And it feels like we're doing that a little bit towards the end of December. I'm going to ask the record keepers and the guides what energies or like what are two different approaches we can take to that would help us to move through it. The reason why I'm going to pull two different options of ways that you could approach this is so if people are kind of sitting in different camps, you get something that's a little bit unique to you. So what I'm going to have you do is I'm going to have you choose a number, 1 or 2. Just intuitively, whatever you think of, the energy of 1 or 2. And that way you can really consider either what the first or the second card might recommend to you as you're navigating this month, and specifically that 4 of Cups scarcity kind of energy we were talking about. So card number 1 is the 2 of Wands. And card number 2 is the Page of Cups. What's really fun about both of these options is both of these options are leaning into your vision and your inspiration, but just in slightly different ways. So for those of you who have card number 1, the 2 of Wands, this is going to be about leaning into the passion and doing things that really energize you towards what you want. And we can talk more about what that means. And for the Page of Cups, anybody who chose number 2, this is going to be about connecting with your creativity, with your heart, and with kind of like your intuition as a way to energize and help you move through that 4 of Cups scarcity kind of energy. So for the 2 of Wands approach, this is when we are looking at our path ahead and we're getting really excited about what can happen for us. There might even be an aspect of like there being multiple things that you're considering or multiple paths that you're considering. And it kind of feels like the world is your oyster because you have multiple options of what you can do. But ultimately with these wand cards, which is connected to the element of fire, we're really hyped up. We're really excited, right? And I feel like following the joy and following the passion is your way through. Okay. Now with this particular deck, there is also a association with this card with letting that passion fuel action and to do action that continues to fuel your passion. For example, doing things like a vision board or doing visualizations or like other very common sort of manifestation practices that keep you coming back to that idea of what you want so that it can continue to fuel that fire inside of you. So to me, this is really connecting with the possibility and that optimism, right? Like when you're doing all of the action that this Knight of Pentacles, this hard work, like really trying to make tangible physical progress. And if you find yourself getting a little discouraged or disappointed, or you feel some of these triggers come up with the scarcity stuff, do the thought work, do the somatic work, of course, to honor those feelings, but then to get yourself back in the groove, like come back to the idea that excited you in the first place and create a little bit of consistency, create a little bit of of a routine of you being able to come back to that so that you can ignite your fire again and again and again. For those of you who picked number 2, we have the Page of Cups. The cups, again, is the suit of our emotions and our intuition and our spirituality and like our heart center. And to me, this feels like you are going to be connecting with sort of like a whimsical and romantic and soft and creative approach to whatever it is that you're trying to create in your life, or whatever it is that you're trying to expand in your life as you're moving through that 4 of Cups kind of scarcity or fear energy. Another thing that I associate personally with the Page of Cups is building up our sense of self-worth. So even just acknowledging, maybe it's like the inner child in us. For me, it would be the little Bree. Like, do I think little Bree is deserving of all of the things that she dreams of? Of course I do. It's like reaffirming that story. Or if there's parts of myself that really doubt or feel really scared, like really seeing the worth that I have and just my energy and just my heart and just my presence, and how that is a channel for love and impact, right? What I want to create, what I feel inspired to create is really from what can help and be of service to people, right? And seeing how much value that can offer to people and letting that build up my self-confidence and my self-concept to be something that I see as really valuable and inherently worthy of all of the things that I might wish for myself, right? It's a very like tender-hearted approach to all of this, and being able to look back at myself with that tender heart and say, yeah, you deserve those things. You don't have to worry about if you do. That's not even a question. Of course you do. And connecting back to that love, connecting back to that heart center, connecting back to that flowing and sometimes emotional creative center as a way to find that momentum and that motion to move through some of these energies that this 4 of Cup represents that can make us feel a little bit stuck. So again, both are coming back to what inspires you, just in slightly different ways. So of course you can take the recommendations from either one of those cards, whatever resonates for you, but you guys will have to let me know if the picking the 1-2 card helped you really land on what exactly was going to be perfect for you. And finally, with the cards, let's ask the Akashic Record Keepers for them to give us a card that's going to have an affirmation that we can think about this month. We have number 5, the Hierophant. I'm going to read the whole meaning from this little book because I think that it's wonderful and it is so on par for all of the things we were talking about with the rest of the spread. So here we go. The meaning from the Affirmator's Tarot for Major Arcana 5, the Hierophant, is this. This orderly fellow has arrived to lay down the law, pin up the rules, and probably lecture you about his color-coded chore wheel. But before you scream, "You're not the boss of me," and run for the door, get honest for a second, see if you could actually benefit from a little bit more discipline. This card may be echoing some sort of literal structured hierarchy in your life, aka school, brand new job, military, etc., or it could just be a friendly reminder to listen to your elders and get your shit together. Whatever the case, those dishes aren't going to do themselves. So yeah, this deck is really funny. And here's the actual affirmation. I aspire to be the best that I can be. And right now that means order over chaos, wisdom over brain garbage, and working over shirkin. Wow. I love. To me, this just feels like we're really trying to get some movement, like get some momentum and get that stability that allows for momentum. And oftentimes that means us getting clear and us getting centered on what we want. And it's just us taking the action, right? And that sounds simple, but that can feel a little bit complicated sometimes. So I love how these cards have broken down the energies of how we can get there, starting with getting really clear-headed and sometimes being able to look really honestly at what's happened in the past and maybe, stepping back and looking at things objectively instead of straight from the emotion of it all so that we can really get that clear idea and that clear set of action and that clear plan for what we want. And then it's about just getting in the reps and actually taking action. Like let yourself get in it and see how it feels when you're in it and challenge yourself to create discipline and to create it from that place of inspiration. And if and when fears and triggers come up like they inevitably do as we're working towards something new, we had some of those ways that we can connect back into that inspiration so that we continue to feel motivated, we continue to feel aligned from that soul place, and really that's sourcing energy from our soul. In both my one-on-one coaching as well as my course that I made, it talks about being soul powered, right? And a big element of that to me is that our soul is helping literally fuel our bodies and our life with its energy. So it doesn't feel like we have to empty our tank every single time. It's like it helps supplement the energy that we're always trying to build up physically when we're following our soul, when we're acting from our heart, when we are in alignment from our intuition. All of those are synonymous to me. When we are acting from that soul place, we are more energized and things feel easier and more accessible. So hopefully that will mean that it doesn't feel like we're forcing it, and it'll feel like we naturally have energy because we feel really inspired to keep going and to take action, especially with all of the stuff that Pluto's been doing. Pluto, which is a very slow moving planet, but a very powerful planet, moved from a zodiac sign that it's been in for the last 20 years into a new sign, from Capricorn into Aquarius. And Pluto represents a lot of transformation and a lot of change. So I feel like there's been a lot of realizations, a lot of things being brought to the light that maybe were in the shadows in our subconscious mind that we weren't really aware of. And it's feeling like it's time for us to start taking some of those realizations that we've had and put them into action. Like, how are we applying this wisdom of what we know is working for us and what we know is not working for us, and of dreams and inspirations that keep coming back to us and said, please, for the love of God, just take a baby step towards it. Don't be perfectionistic about it. Just take a baby step and let yourself go one little step at a time. What you want is on this path of you moving towards it, and really let yourself get moving and get disciplined. Guides, Akashic Record Keepers, what else do you want us to know about the month of December? It feels like they're bringing it around to the concept of physical health, which is interesting because part of the November energy forecast also had to do with some physical health stuff. Yeah, they're saying that there's being a lot that's being kicked up out of like the collective shadow. And for anybody who hasn't really heard of this term shadow, or like shadow work, it's basically the things we are unconscious of. And they usually have to do with fears that we have, right? Because the way that our brain, our ego mind works is it's a very fear motivated organ that's focused on survivability, whereas our soul is focused on inspiration and growth. They're two very different types of motivation, but our mind, in order to stay efficient, learns and interprets things, usually when we're very young, and then stores those back and continues to run our world basically like on those computer programs, right? So all of a sudden these things we learned when we were young get pushed back into the subconscious. They run on autopilot for us so that we don't have to use as much mental energy, because it would be kind of impossible to like manually essentially have to think through them all the time. And so we end up collecting all of these like funky beliefs that aren't true, and we learn to associate fear with all of these things, and it just gets a little wonky. So anyway, things coming up from the collective shadow that show up in our like own personal shadow, and that can be a really intense experience. Very intense experience, and things that feel intense emotionally oftentimes can manifest physically. If there's things that we haven't really been able to metabolize on that mental or emotional plane, then the physical body will kick up some symptoms for us to metabolize and release on the physical plane. Yeah, and it just feels like there's a lot of subconscious energies that want to be moved through. And sometimes it's not even like a reasonable expectation that we be able to process all of them like mentally and emotionally before they come up physically. Like sometimes they just do. So I feel like, wherever we have the space, trying to do the best that we can to support our physical body and allowing it to get movement and circulation to support its natural process of trying to metabolize old energies out of our body is going to be really, really helpful. I'm seeing movement. I'm seeing like ways that you can create strength and again, circulation. Maybe you're doing weight trainings, maybe you're doing Pilates, maybe you're walking, maybe you're dancing, maybe you're doing yoga, right? But just really keep that in mind this month, as things feel wonky. At the very least, take care of your physical body because it's responding to these energies. And if you don't want them to stay in the body longer than they need to, then we can't resist them. And we got to give our body the tools to do what it's so intelligently designed to do, which is to process and release them. Which is also fortunate because in December, we are kicking off the Winter Book Club, and it's going to be on health. It's going to be on understanding how our mental and emotional and spiritual health impacts our physiology and our physical health. It's written by the wonderful Dr. Kim Duramo. This is a super easy read for anybody who's kind of afraid of or like doesn't read a lot. This is so easy. And there's so many practical tips that we're going to be doing as a group and sharing our experiences. It's a wonderful time. We chat in WhatsApp throughout the duration of the 4 months. We get together once a month on Zoom. I do channeled energy activations that are relative to the book and I answer questions, and it's just a really wonderful time. So if you want to build some community with people who are interested in this topic and in their personal development, and also deepen your own knowledge and therefore your own level of empowerment around creating balanced and vital health, then I really encourage you to join the book club. We technically kick off in December, but we don't start our first book club meeting where we're talking about what we've read until January. So I'm going to leave the registration open until the end of December, but I highly encourage you to check out the link in my show notes to be able to get signed up for that today. Okay, guys, is there anything else that you want us to know for December? Interesting. They're showing me the transition from December into January. They're saying that they know that for us, we really have a focus as this is like a transitionary period. And we really like to feel this sense of complete and then restart going from December to January. I feel like it's going to be a little funky this year. If you usually like to kind of wrap things up and then maybe write your manifestation list or, kind of figure out your vision for the year ahead. And if that's feeling weird, if that doesn't feel natural, if it feels like you have to force it a little bit as you go from the end of December into January, trust that feeling. I'm feeling like there's going to be one portal, maybe in the a third of the way through January where you could do that if you want. But I'm feeling like the end of February and coming into March when the zodiac seasons finish up with Pisces. Yeah, I feel like Pisces season is going to be a little bit better of a time for that. And it feels like they just wanted to give all of us an FYI. And then they're showing me the holiday season. What is it about the holiday season? They're showing me that the energy of presence is one of the best things we can focus on over the holiday season. And of course, being very present is something that's going to benefit us anytime, any place. But it feels like, again, the energies are just a little tumultuous here throughout the end of this year and going into the beginning of next year. So I feel like as we move through the holidays, one of the best things that we can just come back around to is just being present. Another element of practicing presence that I really enjoy is finding gratitude and finding literal enjoyment in the present moment, being able to spend time with your family or maybe your kids, really soak that in, just sit there and be like, ugh, this is what I work for. This is what I do my life for, so that I can have these opportunities to participate in whatever in these times. Or maybe if it's not that and it's just you getting some alone time, or maybe appreciating the fact that you have a job that you can work if you are working over the holidays, just really being present and finding how your circumstances are answers to your prayers, or how they are the fulfillment of the dreams that you have for yourself. Letting yourself really just be in that energy. And if for whatever reason you're going through something that feels really tough over the holidays, maybe even just being present with what's happening so that you can find the purpose in it, so that you can find whatever gifts it's offering you, or whatever liberation it's offering you, or whatever transformation it's offering you. The more we can be present, the more that we are in surrender and we're not resisting what's happening, which usually means it can move through faster, right? So I feel like, maybe playing a game with yourself, or again, just setting that intention that you want to try to be as present as possible through that holiday season is going to be what serves us all the best. All right, Akashic Record Keepers and Guides, is there any final messages that you want to share? Okay, the last thing they want to share is please stay in the energy of hope. Do not despair. Do not despair. There's no reason to despair. This is what they're showing me. They say there is a divine plan for it all and you got to trust it. And in order for you to be able to be a player in this divine plan that impacts things for the positive, you can't be lost in despair, or else your energy field isn't plugged in and cannot receive almost the divine instructions that you get through your intuitive feelings, so that you can impact things to continue to go in a positive route. Do what you need to do to take care of yourself, to process feelings that get kicked up again in this kind of tumultuous season, but keep centering yourself around faith and trusting yourself to navigate anything that's tough and to have solutions and options that you can choose, whatever the best one is for you when the time arises and if the time arises. And also trust that this divine plan of everything that's happening is for the highest and best good of us all, that it's moving us all towards deeper evolution, deeper peace, deeper bliss, deeper authenticity, and deeper love. That we're moving in that direction inevitably, no matter what, and that it's going to be okay. We might not know how. We might have had an idea, like we always do in our human brains, of how we think things should go to be well, to be good. But there's always so much more to it than we can understand. And stay in hope. Just be careful not to fall into that despair, because again, it almost closes the door on what can come in for you and how you can again play a part in helping spirit move through you, help God move through you into the world. And overall, I just get this feeling like they're not worried. Like they're not worried. Everything is fine. It's okay. So if that's something that helps bring you a little bit of peace and comfort, I'm so happy. Thank you so much, guides and Akashic Record Keepers, for connecting and for sharing your energy and for sharing your insights. It's always such a pleasure, and I'm always so honored to help be a channel for that. If you guys liked this episode, please let me know. If you've had a chance to leave a review, that I cannot tell you how much that means to me, how much that helps this podcast reach new people. Share the episode on your social media with friends. And that also makes a really big impact. And DM me. I love DMing with you guys. I love nerding out about all this kind of stuff. Please don't feel weird like I don't have time or something here for you. No, I literally make time, especially the cool stories and synchronicities about how these episodes relate to things, or to maybe parts of the podcast that you especially love, or ideas that you have. I literally love it all. So reach out. Let me know. I was so happy to share space with you guys and to come back into the monthly energy forecast. I'm excited for all of the things we're going to do in the rest of this season of Breakthroughs with Bree. And I will see you guys next week for more breakthroughs. Bye, everyone. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Breakthroughs with Bree. But before you go, please take a moment to either rate and review the podcast on whatever platform you're listening to it, or share this episode or maybe one of your other favorites with friends or loved ones that you think might enjoy or benefit from this content. Both of those things help more than you know, so that I can keep creating these episodes to help us all have more breakthroughs. Remember, you can connect with me on social media, sign up for my email list, hear what products, services, or events that I'm currently offering, all in the link in the show description, or by visiting my website, healingwithbree.net. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for your support and for the time that you're taking to heal yourself and align more with your beautiful soul, as it helps us all so much more than you realize. I'll see you all next week for more breakthroughs.